Yeah, it is 7:45. I'm a little bit late. But tonight we want to talk about, please, if you have not already, take a look at the thumbnail that I put up because it is awesome. If you take a look at the engine bay, it is of a 1968 Nova, and it's all done up. The suspension, everything is like to the nines, and the engine bay matches, and the engine itself matches the paint on the car and stuff. It is fantastic. 1968 Nova that the guys from Victory Motorsports had. And they had, obviously, as I told you, they had lots of cool cars. They had other RB powered stuff, RB25s and stuff. They had Skylines. They also had lots of 2J stuff. But this thing was a little bit unique in that it was a classic muscle car. So we harken back to the Tokyo Drift era of Fast and the Furious. You guys will remember they took a classic muscle car and swapped in a JDM swapped a classic muscle car. So the question is for you guys, and this will be this will be our poll. Okay, would you swap in a JDM turbo motor of your choice? Pick whatever one you like. What is your fancy? Into a classic muscle car. So into a Camaro, a Chevelle, a Mustang, a Challenger, whatever it is that you like, whatever thing speaks to you. Would you ever do a classic, a JDM swap, an RB, a 2J, a turbo rotary, a Nissan, a SR20, or maybe a one of these 5.6 liter Titan motors, or I think that's right. I think that's what their trucks are called. The V8 Lexus motors or Toyota stuff. Would you do that? Would you put? I mean, we know that from a power standpoint, I can tell you, I watched while that Supra made, I don't know, 700 or 800 horsepower at the tire on the white one that I'm going to show you when we do the video on it. So we watch that. So it's not there's no shortage of power potential. And obviously with 2Js and RBs and stuff, you can go into 4-digit power level if that's what you want. A lot of guys just won't go that route or even look at that rate or even consider that route because, I'm all American. Muscle cars need to have American motors in them or whatever. They wouldn't think twice about taking a 240Z and swapping an American V8 into it, or putting an LS in basically everything and in a 240SX or whatever you want to put it in. There's no qualms about that. But what happens when you go the other route? Because let's face it, if you have a 1,000 horsepower 2J motor, it makes 1,000 horsepower. It's a lot of power. It looks awesome. I mean, you look at the RB in this very, very nicely done Nova. If you look at that engine bay, not only is it amazing looking because the motor looks fantastic, but it also is like serviceable. There's like lots of room around everything. You can see it's full of turbo goodness and billet goodness too, because it's a billet turbo. I'm sure it's a Garrett. So it has everything going for it. It has the right kind of visual appeal. It has plenty of power. There's accessibility if you need to work on stuff. So it has a lot of good things going for it. But the question is, people in their mindsets are like, I won't ever do that. I won't ever do whatever the thing that goes against the thing that they believe and have believed their whole life, or probably were taught by their parents or whatever. I'm not going to go against that. This is my thing and I'm going to do it. And if you I have a lot more respect for a guy that looked at that and then looked at the other thing and said, okay, both of those are cool. I'm going to go this route rather than I'm not even going to look at that. Cause that's not me. I'm not that guy. I look at that stuff and I go, okay, would I swap some other kind of motor? Would I take that Nova and put a turbo rotary in it? Probably not. Cause I would want something that had more torque. The RB motor, maybe a 2J would be better. A Barra would be really good because it's 4-liter, because it's bigger. But all of those at least will. I mean, when I watch the Super thing, you put enough boost to it, you make lots of torque, and that works out good. I don't know that I go the rotary route. There are lots of other things that I would swap rotaries into. Mainly, I just want a stock one in a Gen 3 RX-7 so I could just drive that around. But putting that in a Datsun 510 or even some small American car, Chevette or something, that would be awesome. And it would be unique and different and weird. And it would have like, it would check all the, super Richie boxes, as it were. That's cool stuff. So like I said, this Nova, very nicely done and amazing looking in terms of, way beyond what I ever do in terms of decking stuff out. Obviously, this is they threw money into this thing and did it correctly, not just threw money at it, but did it in the proper fashion, because it like I said, it does all things. Looks amazing. I mean, the attention to detail and the way that everything is done, and even like subtle things like having JDM style wheels on and stuff, they did a really, really good job picking, they picked American iron, which is cool. You can hard to go wrong with, and some sort of American muscle car, whether your thing is Novas or Chevelles or, like I said, Barracudas or whatever the thing is, you like that and you're driving around and because it looks cool. And I think anymore, it's even cooler, at least for me. And I was having this discussion with a couple of the guys from Victory that maybe this happens as we get older because I'm not 19 anymore, but having air conditioning and having all that stuff, especially with turbos, like that's why when we did the turbo kit in the Tahoe, when Jimmy built the manifold and did all that stuff, one of the design criteria was it has to have the factory AC and heater. It has to do all the things that a normal one does, plus it has to be turbocharged. Before, when I was 19, I would give one of those or all of those up for the other thing. Okay, we're making lots of power. Okay, good. I don't need AC. I don't need a heater. I don't need power steering. I don't need any of the things that make life a lot easier when you have stuff like that. But especially with boost, there's no reason that you can't have all of that. And so having AC and power steering, especially on a heavy car, having AC and power steering and even cruise control and all those things, there's no reason you can't have all of that. And obviously, if price is no object, you can have all of that. But in this case, even even if you just swapped a stock one into a Nova, a ratty Nova like I used to have, that would still work. It'd be more expensive, certainly, than doing it that way rather than just doing an LS. But you'd have to spend money on the transmission that you put behind an LS, because otherwise it's, especially a turbo LS, that's going to be money. So, all kinds of like cool things to consider. One of the other things I want to mention about the turbo testing that we did, and this will be coming up, I'll be doing a video on it, and we'll probably do a live feed on it, probably after the video comes out. But we tested different ARs too on the 3584. We tested an 83 and a 121 AR. And then we also tested the 3584 versus the G42. So we have at the same boost levels and in the car and in the real world on the chassis dyno. So we have not just response rates, which we have as data logs, but we have the affecting power curve changes, how the thing spools up, what it does to the power curve, and how that, how that differs when you change these ARs. And an 83 to a 121 is a pretty good step. If going from an 83 to an 84, that's not even worth doing. But if you make a sizable change, you can make a sizable change in what happens with the power. And then arguably, which is something that we'll get into on some of this testing, when you're doing testing, when you're doing stuff out on the street, like we did, I posted up a bunch of promotional stuff, or at least, clips up on Facebook and Instagram on doing roll-on boost tests. So doing it in second gear, doing it in third gear, both of those locked, and then doing it with other gears unlocked, and seeing how the thing responds, in the real world. And it obviously responds differently under each of those circumstances. So there's no cut and dry thing where you go, oh, this is an absolute. Like I said, when I was talking to you guys about doing a roll on starting below 2000 RPM in third gear, you'd never do that. You know, you might do that on a chassis dyno, but you'll never do that on the street. Nowhere will you ever take the time to lock the thing in third gear and then do a roll on and go, well, I'm going to see what's going around and grunt this thing down at 1800 RPM and see what happens. You just don't do that. And so that's why we did it with a bunch of different things. And my point is that when we do this on the chassis dyno, we did our runs in second gear. If you do it in third gear, it'll be different. The boost response will be different than it was in second gear. You know, the load will be different. The susceptibility to detonation with timing and stuff will be all of that will be different. And so you got to take that into account when you're testing, because those are the comments that you get when you run something on the engine dyno. Well, that's not a real world thing. No, it's not. It's not at all, because you don't ever have a stationary load like that and then release it. Now, maybe if you put it up on a two-step or something and then you launched it, that might be kind of comparable, I guess. Probably not. But again, neither are the other things. All of the other things, all of the other ways that we test it could easily be changed and be different. But, you know, if we hit you with all of the information and go, hey, look, it did this on the chassis dyno in second gear. We took it out on the street. It did this in second gear. It did this in third gear. It did this when we just let it do its thing, which it always defaults to let's downshift. If you're getting in the throttle at 2000 RPM or 2500 RPM, what I'm going to do to help you accelerate better, because it seems like this is what you want to do. This is what the computer is saying. Okay, you're going to wide open throttle. You're at 2500 RPM. Let's get this party started. You don't want to be at 2500 RPM. You want to be at 4500 RPM where we can like start going. And so let's start going. And when it does that, boost comes on, it makes more power, and it does all the happy things. So we got lots of that stuff coming up with lots of, you know, really good data, like I said, including the AR stuff. So let's see what you guys are doing. First of all, let's check and see our poll is in. Would you swap in a JDM turbo motor of your choice into a classic muscle car? 58% are saying yes. That's actually more than I thought. What about VORTECH 4200 on a Supra or a Skyline? Yeah, you could do that. The VORTECH doesn't fit very well in stuff because it's really tall, but it's bigger than a 2J, so it already makes more power starting out. So it would, I don't know that it could eventually get to where a 2J block can get to, but it can certainly go to lots of power. Dave, what's going on? Dark Blaze. There's already a VORTECH 4200 Supra out there, 2 or 3 of them if I recall. Seems like RBs are expensive. K-swap everything that can't fit an LS. Turbo K-swap if you want power. Turbo LS for more power if you want to be unique. LTDI swap. All of those are possible. When we were there, there was another JDM motor in an American muscle car in a Corvette. There was a K-swap, turbo K-swap in a C5 Corvette that makes a lot of power because they're running lots of boost. And so we're going to do something on that. They just need to get back on the dyno, and then because it's a lot. It makes a lot of power. There were rotary Nova years ago, rotary Chevette, turbo Titan motor would be cool. RB is only cool in Nissan. They aren't that great of an engine to swap into anything. If you want inline six, do a VORTECH, Barra, a 2J, or a turbo BMW. I don't agree with that. So excited for the new RHP turbo kit. Yep. I'd rather do a Cummins or a Duramax swap. Those are hefty pieces. There's a VQ30 swapped into a 79 Nova. Good to know because that's a great engine and inexpensive. Lately, my theory has been I don't care if it's made on Mars. If it's a good engine, who cares? And also, even if it's not a good engine, but if it's nicely done, nicely turned out, and you could make power. I just wanted to drop a DSM all-wheel drivetrain into a Rambler. There you go. Big under rat rods, so love seeing swaps that are unique and don't belong. Yeah, rat rods, kind of anything goes. Calvin just bought a Mark III Super with a 4200. Cool. I'm one of those keep the heritage of the vehicle people, but I don't besmirch people who choose to swap. Bodie Vision did a full body swap of an El Camino onto a CRV frame. Do those have the same wheelbase and stuff? Did he have to shorten that at all? I would think that a CRV would be smaller than an El Camino. $230 Chinese 125 engine I bought for my Trail 70. We'll put the front end right over backwards in first gear. How much have you put into that thing? I don't imagine it's $230 anymore. Building a drag car, not sure which motor I want to use. Got an 8.1 and a 6-liter going nitrous. Which one would you choose? How much power are you trying to make? I think it's going to get harder for you to make a big peak power number with an 8.1. And if I was building a nitrous motor, and I don't know if you're doing this for no prep stuff or something, the 8.1 is going to be more traction problem than the 6-liter is going to be. And I think you can make more peak power with a 6-liter to add the nitrous to cheaper in a 6-liter, because there just isn't a lot of stuff for the 8.1. There's very few inexpensive choices for an 8.1. Are 2Js and RBs the same dimension? Maybe physically, but they're different displacements. RBs came in 2-liter, 2.5, and 2.6, and 2Js are 3 liters. Can't remember what the entire build is on his channel. Oh, the entire build is on his channel. Okay. Excuse me. I'd like to check that out. 1Js and 2Js are copies of the Mercedes-Benz 103 and the 104s. Like the Nissan L series is a copy of the Mercedes single cam motor that we had in the what am I? A 230 SL. It's like that motor, whatever that designation is. I'm not Mercedes fluent, although we do have one. Would you swap a JDM turbo motor of your choice into a classic American muscle car? 5743 right now. Uh-oh, I got 2J people coming to the rescue. Shots are fired. Shots fired. Get in the zone. Auto zone. Nissan RBs are flipped. The intake and exhaust is flipped versus Mercedes-Benz and a Toyota. Recently came across a guy on YouTube that's machining 4-valve LS heads, still push rod, and fits 4.853 bore. I think he said 350 CFM, based on 3D printed plastic idea. So he's making 4-valve heads for it. And how's he going to make them? Are they going to be 3D printed out of aluminum or something? Any good options for air-to-water intercooler, bang for your buck option? Yeah, we'll have an air-to-water intercooler, although I don't, what are you putting it in? What application is it? I think Dawson copied the M180. Yeah, I don't know what motor that is. But it is the same. I mean, it's very, very similar to the 240, 260Zs that I had. And then if you look at that 230 SL that I got from my mom way back, that motor was very, very similar. I never tried to interchange any of the parts, but it would make sense that that's what you would do. Clickety click, clickety click. Mark as red. That's good. So what do you guys got planned for this weekend? Anything cool? Anything cool? Next time you take the head off a 2JZ, put an M104 head gasket on top and look how it matches. Intercooler's going into a 69 GTO full Corvette swap with an RHP 800 when I order it. Have the Lobo truck and springs already. Okay. The intercooler that we have would go more than 1,000 horsepower, the one that we used on this kit. So we're going to be offering that, but I don't know yet. We don't know yet what the pricing and stuff is going to be. These machine 7 so far out of billet 3D printed was to test the ID and be able to touch it. Yeah, that's a good idea. But they're billet though. They're billet LS heads. How's he going to cool them? Keep the Nova American with an Atlas. Baseball tournament this weekend. Hopefully picking up a set of 317 heads for an iron 5.7. RB26 and El Camino would be cool. Yep. 5.7 M series and 2Js are loosely based on a Chevy 235 series L6 from the 60s. Matching head gaskets are a thing on many engines. The Volvo B234F head gasket is also the Lima 2300. Pretty sure it's a 2J in the thumbnail. We love those kinds of swaps in Australia. RB30s and Toronto's turbo. Is that a 2J? Did I get that wrong? Back surgery on Monday. Why did I think that that was a... Well, we were standing over next to the... I don't think I have my phone here now. They're full flow water jackets. Okay. Bolt onto the factory block. Okay. And is obviously if it's a 4-valve deal, it's going to be an overhead cam thing, right? Or did they design rockers for it or something? Why was I thinking that was an RB? Did I want it to be an RB? It was next to the Skyline. Maybe I just had Skyline on the mind. And I willed that to happen. Japanese and Koreans bought the M104 engine plant and manufactured the M104 block until 2007. It's working on finalizing the rockers. Still only 16 push rods. Okay. So it will be rockers and push rods. So it'll be cam in the block then? RB intake is on the right side. Is it the right side from the driver's perspective or from looking at the car? One heavier gear set for the transmission, thin sheet copper for the head and cylinder base gaskets, and I machined material off the crankcase at the cylinder head surface. Then shaved 292. Oh, grams. Okay, I was going to say, what is 292? I thought we were getting into a different kind of motor. I thought we were getting into the inline Chevy 6-cylinder. Now I'm going to have to change everything on the intro for this. 2J engine has intake on the right side of the block as you look at it from the front, and RB is on the left side. I started school in 2 weeks to get my COST and ASE certified. Pretty excited. That's cool. Awkward Performance posted it 4 days ago. I don't know about push rod length, but supposedly they're going to work with a factory block and cam. Okay, well, that would make sense that they would do that because that would be kind of cool. So I wonder, the rocker situation is going to be interesting. They're going to make their own rockers because I don't know how you would adapt onto the rocker to actuate another valve unless there would be some sort of actuator between the two. And then you just actuate both of them with a bar or something going across. which is a good cylinder head for the 4-liter Jeep motor. Doesn't Edelbrock make a 4-liter Jeep head? And if they do, is it any good? Building a 351 for a Bronco. Should I just convince him to go Coyote or Godzilla instead? It depends on what his power needs are. A 351 can get you pretty far, then especially with boost, but because there's no shortage of good cylinder heads and good intake manifolds and stuff for a 351, and there's lots of stroker assemblies for that too. So it depends on where he wants to go. A Coyote is going to be a different kind of thing than a 351 is, and a Godzilla obviously is good because it's going to be bigger, and in a full-size Bronco that might be beneficial, but it's not going to be cheap. So I don't know what his needs are. A bigger motor is usually good, which is why guys do the strokers in those 351s. And the Godzilla is definitely bigger. A Coyote works, and they have a good power curve because they're very efficient. They have good intake manifolds. They've got 4-valve heads. They got variable cam timing, which does help with their specific torque production given the displacement. But they're still not going to do what a bigger motor does down low. Depends on what he wants. Depends on your needs. 54%. At least I got the poll correct. Most common swap for an inline 6-cylinder now is the Bear engine. Ford 6 can produce upwards of 2,000 horsepower with supporting modifications. Are you saying the most most common swap in Australia is that? Because it's not that in the United States. And a 4-liter is good because a 4-liter is better than a 3-liter and better than a 2.6-liter. And then you have to argue with the Ameribera guys, the Atlas guys, on whether 4.2 is even better. So that's on inner chiller. Is that cooling the air before it goes into the turbo? I myself don't think it's a good idea because I think it takes energy to, if you are successful in doing that, it takes energy to do that. And I don't think it's worthwhile because it can't work for very long. It's not, people always talk about you can't put ice water and stuff because you can't go road race with it or whatever. And you just do it for a drag strip thing. And maybe that works for a drag strip thing. But it seems like it's a lot of expense and technology to me. In Australia, yeah, that should be a very popular motor in Australia because you guys had a lot of those. Best 4-liter head is the Edelbrock aluminum, and it's okay. 221 CFM at 400 valve lift. Are they limited in the cams that they can put in there? Why only 400 valve lift? Does it flow better at 500 or 600? You might be interested in the Harley Milwaukee 8-valve. Each rocker manages 2 valves, and there's no individual adjustment. What is a Harley Milwaukee 8-valve train? I don't know what that is. An RB25 and a 91 Ranger, not installed, just being stored, but it made everyone do a double take. Yeah. The one that I always wanted to run was an RB20 because I wanted to run in 2-liter classes at Bonneville, and I thought, ooh, a 6-cylinder 2-liter is going to be fantastic because we don't have to have nearly as much head flow. It's just going to work. And guys had made lots of power with RBs. They had been well developed in racing and stuff. So I thought that would be cool. But then I didn't know what I put it in. I really didn't want to put it in, then it would have kind of limited me to a rear-wheel drive car, and I didn't really want to do that. Air coolers normally between the turbo and the intake manifold to cool the intake charge. Yeah, if that's directed at me, I think I got that. But the inner chiller thing, he said, is normally cooling the air before the turbo. What would be a question for an Edelbrock? That would be a question for Edelbrock. That's just how they advertise it. Probably falls off terribly after that, and they don't want to show it. Maybe it's because the Jeep valve train is limited in the lift that they can run for some reason. I don't know what retainer to seal is. I don't know anything about that head or what guys normally run other than the one that I saw that they did that where they made a lot. They made like 800 horsepower or something with a turbo version of one of those on something that I saw on YouTube, and they did a good job. I mean, it was nicely turned out, and it obviously made good power and stuff. But I just don't know about the heads to know what the limitations are. Milwaukee is the newest big twin series of motors. 4-valve head started with 107 full electronics. Didn't Porsche do the Evo motors for Harley Davidson, and weren't those 4-valve motors? Otherwise, I don't know which ones you're talking about. I'm sure it's a Harley motor, right? 2-liter RB motor is overlooked due to the smaller displacement and limited horsepower that will produce when a 2.5 and a 3-liter motor are widely available. I agree. Bigger ones are better, but not for what I was wanting to do because we were class specific. So we were limited in 2 liters. In fact, that's what we set all the records in with 2 liters. But we did it in a front-wheel drive Honda. And we did it with B series Honda motors. But I always liked the fact that there was a 6-cylinder, a 2-liter 6-cylinder. I thought it was cool. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's like it's like picking a D-stroked LS. I don't want to do that. Not for the street, certainly. Because then if it's bigger, it spools a turbo motor. You get going. It's just better. And an RB is because I had a lot of experience with the L series Nissans. Datsuns, they were not Nissan back then, but the Datsun motors, and they having a non-cross flow head and a single cam 2-valve deal. The RB was just when we had Z's, the RB would be the motor that we would wish for. I'd like to see an F series or a square body with a Toyota 1 FC FE from a Land Cruiser. Interchiller works the same as the intercooler between the turbo and the intake manifold. One is water to air and the other is air to air. Same thing, basically. An interchiller between the turbo and the intake manifold. Is the interchiller just the name of something? I thought he was talking about the electronic stuff that they cool the air like in the intake tube before the turbo. I thought that. What was the name of that thing? If interchiller is just the name of one, like it's the core between the manifold or something, that works fine. So let me look that up so I know what I'm talking about. Not that that's a guarantee. Okay. Increase your performance. Okay, I just want to. Inlet air temps as low as 0 degrees or less. Let's see. Somebody tell me what it is. Okay. Okay, so it is the AC compressor thing that I was thinking about, but they're doing this. They're doing this to cool the. Let's see. So you're using the AC to cool things off? So like Dodge does? So the other one that I saw was running air on the inlet side through something like this that cools the air before it goes into the motor. Porsche helped design the V-Rod 1200 motor that was up to 1250. Dual overhead cam, not a real Harley. Interesting. Harley people don't like the V-Rods. V-Rod guys don't like other Harleys because they don't like it because it's way better. Were there other limitations of class besides displacement, or is that up to your discretion? No. Well, there are. There are limitations in things that you can swap. Like some of these engines had to come in their original cars. There's limitations in what kind of, you can't take a head from another engine family sometimes and put it on there. There are different things like that. So you have to be, like my Honda came with a B series engine, so you could do that. But if you put a B18 in it, then it could technically be a swap. If you didn't use a B18 head and you used a B16 head or a B18C5 head, which is a B16 head, you could do it. Then it was just a B16 with more displacement, which was legal. So yeah, there is some finagling going on. Inner chillers using AC to cool the air to water intercooler. Okay, I got that. I'm considering a K swap for a Ranger. That's good. The K series can make a lot of power. There's a condenser in the air to water and building up a bank of cold antifreeze so it will last for a reasonable amount of time. Good street car stuff. Okay. So you're running the AC while you're trying to make performance is what you're doing? Now compressed air supercharging. That's really cool. That works good. Although again, there's always limitations and stuff. But if you could get I don't know how you're going to get the water down to 0 degrees. Or I guess they were saying 32, so you could get it down to near freezing. It does like cold water like that. There's a condenser in the air to water and building up a bank of cold antifreeze. Yep. So so you have a secondary, do you still have a secondary heat exchanger? You have to have all of that, right? Because the condenser is going to have to have airflow over it. I need to look that up and see what's going on there. Inner chiller to the rescue. So did we talk about the other tests that we're doing? We're doing, in fact, Jimmy did what's going on here? Yeah, we're not doing that. I think Jimmy completed the rest of the 4-inch downpipe off of the G42. And so now he's hooking that to the stock exhaust. So you can drive around with that turbo just going through the stock exhaust. So that'd be good. It'd be interesting to see. I'm curious to see. I'm going to have him send me sound clips and see how it should be really whisper quiet. I'm curious to see. He'll run it on the dyno to find out how much power that takes away at the various boost levels. So we went like, 4, 8, and 12 pounds kind of thing. And when we first did this, we went up in successive steps, not knowing how much the manual wastegate controller was going to do, how much it was for each turn. And like most of those, it's not a really linear function. It's some have little effect and some have lots of effect. It just makes it exciting when you're testing. But after you've run, the cool thing about this is when you're first starting doing turbo testing, this is the way it was with all of the big bang motors. And for most of the turbo motors that I've run on the engine dyno, even though I've been doing this for a really, really long time, whenever you run one, it's like, let's turn it up a little bit. Let's turn it up a little bit. Let's turn it up a little bit. And then after you get to wherever you were going to that you were worried about, then it's just Just run it. And so that's what it became when we were doing the testing. We were running the turbo motor, Jimmy's Tahoe, the 5.3, just all stock cam, stock converter in the 4060, stock intake and all that stuff. And then we were running it. We started out running on pump gas. So we have pump gas and E85 differentials and power, which we'll cover in the videos. But we're, running it on pump gas. We start out, like I said, 4 pounds or something like that. And we start off there. We're like, okay, let's turn it up a little bit. Let's just, turn it up a little bit. And we went to where we thought it was, was a good number for pump gas, and then put E85 in it. And then, successfully stepped it up. Okay, here's another pound. Here's another pound. Here's another pound. And then after you do that, you're like, okay, apparently the transmission is not going to break. So all that seems to be working. And the motor seems to be happy now that we've blown all the carbon out of it and stuff, because it's a really high mileage one. But now it just wants to run. We're like, okay, it seems to be happy at this. So we can now go from, like when we were doing the AR testing on these things, we could just go, okay, look, we start out at low boost. Oh yeah, it's happy. Okay, go up 4 turns. Okay, we'll do that. Go up another 4 turns or whatever. You go to the all of it, like just open it up all the way so it goes to the max boost. Okay, let's do that. We'll do the middle way, and because we're just looking at, okay, is it when we're looking at a differential here, is the exhaust worth more, which is certainly going to be. Is it worth more? Is there more loss from the stock exhaust compared to an aftermarket exhaust as we turn the boost up? Naturally, there's going to be, because it's a flow thing. But how much is that? So if we run it at 350 at the tire, at 400 or 450, 500, whatever, how much less power do we make with the stock exhaust? Like, does it go from 1 horsepower difference to 10 to 15? Does it go from 10 to 20 to 50? What is it? What people want to see with that? Maybe is there some critical power output where the stock exhaust goes, hey, look, I shouldn't be doing this. This is twice as much as I was like designed for. So why am I doing this, and how problematic is this going to be? Or maybe it just is going to go, hey, look, this is fine. I'm a 3-inch exhaust, a 3-inch single exhaust. This is what I flow like. And we're all going to be okay with it. So it'll be interesting to see. And then we'll do the same test with the GTX 3584 RS turbo, and see what the differences are there. Because with the 3584, we made almost the same power that we made with the 42 at the tire, at the same boost level. It was very, very close. Different curve. different peak output also, but different curve, as you might expect. As someone who has an RB and is R33, swapping one into any car without a stock pile of parts is a hard no bueno. Sourcing bits is a pain. 2Js are getting to be money. That's 4,200 for the win. You can go get 2Js or 1Js or whatever they are in the NA versions of those in the wrecking yard. There's lots of them there. At least lots of them here. There are, and I don't know if you're in Australia or New Zealand or something. But in the United States, I've seen lots of those. So getting a naturally aspirated Toyota motor would not be hard. I agree with you not having any RB surplus stuff, because I don't have any surplus stuff. But like I do with LS stuff, if I have an LS and I'm putting in something, or we're running it on the dyno and it's missing something, I have probably 12 of those just sitting in storage. It makes life easier, which I don't have any for the RB, so it might be a pain. Rotary and a B2000 mini truck would definitely be cool. What effect, if any, would the same size horsepower 2-liter 4-cylinder engine versus a 6-cylinder and have more or less of the same exhaust flow to spoolie turbo? Well, it would depend. The amount of exhaust flow that has to spoolie turbo would be a function of the naturally aspirated versions of those motors. There might be something that you could argue, and I'm not smart enough to know which one of these would be better. There might be some pulsing going on that would happen from a 6-cylinder based on what you could do with the exhaust that the 4-cylinder does not have. Normally a tri-Y is used on a 4-cylinder. Maybe you could do a 3 into 2 into 1 on the 6-cylinder. Maybe you could divide it. Maybe you could do something tricky and maybe make some kind of difference there. But otherwise, it's just a function of how much power does each one of those things make, and then how much exhaust energy do we have then to drive the turbo. Nissan or Toyota V8 swap would be cool. Has Toyota made a good hot rod motor since the 2J? Not really familiar with Toyotas. I don't think so. Maybe their V8s are good. There's no 1JZ factory USDM. Bought mine in Australia. Drove it across the continent before shipping it home to the US in Wisconsin. What are the motors? What are the 6 cylinders that are in the, like an IS300? Is that still a 2J? Valentina, what's going on? So we're going to be cutting out a little early. So we got like 2 more minutes. We're going to close out our poll at 53.47. It would JDM swap it. Z-Days, what do you want to see in a 400 versus a 350 block? What are you asking about? A Bear and a 15 Mustang built a few years ago. That'd be cool. I wanted to kind of put one of those in my Fox Mustang. Nissan 5.6, IS300 is the 2J, but still need work to make good power. What do they need to make power in that compared to the one that's in the Supra? What's different about the NA motor? I know the intake manifold is different, but in my opinion, the one that's in the photo, those Grady manifolds are just short runner manifolds, and I wouldn't pick that. That wouldn't be my choice unless I wanted to run to 8,500 RPM. They do look fancy, especially when they're polished or painted. Just know the Victory guys will be mad at me for mislabeling the the engine. In fact, you can see the Honda right there. Is your new truck turbo kit asymmetrical capable? Yes, you could do that. You would just cap one side of it. You cap the inlet for the crossover section, and then you just run something off of one side. So that wouldn't be hard. All the VVTi ones have weaker internals. Line board, decked, splayed caps, steel caps, and ARP bolts in a 400 factory GM block. What's the maximum horsepower for a nitrous steel motor? I don't know. I think the things that you're changing there are not the weak link in that block. I think other things are the weak link in that block. I don't think that the 4-bolt deal and steel caps are what's problematic in that block. I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt anything, but I think that the stuff going upward, and I think that the cap strength going upward might be a problem in those, and they're Siamese bore, so I don't know how thick the sleeves are in those blocks. Depends. They seem to be weakening them out as newer rods. Max horsepower for a nitrous street motor. Well, I don't dictate that. How much power are you trying to make would be my question. And I don't know that I would spend all the money on that stuff rather than just getting a dart block. But again, it would depend on what kind of power you want to make. If you want to make 400 or 500 horsepower, you're worried about nothing. But if you want to make 2,000, then there's something. You want to make 900 horsepower nitrous? That seems like a lot. I just snagged a 95 Mercury V12 to swap into a vet, mainly for the music. Oh, is it a Mercedes V12? 700 motor and 300 spray. That's going to be a really good motor to make 700. It's going to be a fairly high RPM deal. Mercedes V12. Is that the one I was thinking of? Yeah, that's the one that I like. The a CL600 is the one that I always wanted on the Mercedes stuff. Gangster car. Brian Salter and David Weiser boys are helping. Well, you have all of the brain trust you need there. So you're going to have really good cylinder heads and a big roller cam and all that stuff in it. I appreciate you and Jimmy testing how long an unring gapped high mileage LS will hold up to lots of boost. We're never going to run lots of boost. Jimmy's taking that motor apart, or he's getting another motor because he's going to put a turbo, not a turbo 400, a 4L80 in his Tahoe and a different drive shaft. And then he's going to take the motor out of it that's in it, this high mileage one. Mostly he wanted to take it out because he wants to fix the rear main seal. And so he figures I'm going to take it apart and do a razor blade rebuild on it. We were thinking that it had, when I first went there, we were thinking that it had a head gasket, a bad head gasket. So we got ARP head studs and we were going to do a head gasket swap. I thought when I was there, I'm glad that we didn't have to do that. Turned out to be a leaking heater hose, a fitting. And so that was cured. It was cured by bypassing the heater core just because it was quick and easy. And then he's going to fix that. But he's going to take it apart. He's going to put ring gap in it because we're going to do lots of turbo testing with it. And especially with a 4L80, then we can turn the boost up. So he's got ARP head bolts for it. He's going to do a razor blade rebuild on it, put it back together with ring gap. We're going to test the cam. We're going to put a low buck truck camshaft in it, and then we can turn those turbos up. Then we can make 600, 700, 800, whatever we want, whatever we think that it will take, and more so whatever's necessary. Because it's not going to be a thing where we want to race the Tahoe. No, that's not the car or vehicle that you would pick if you want to go race. But we want to be able to do testing on things like the air intake and the intercooler, and I can do different intake manifolds. We certainly do different camshafts, which is what we want to do, and more importantly, we want to do tunes for all of this. So we want to have a tune for the turbo with the 1000cc injectors and the 525 pump, and be able to supply that to people so that when they put that stuff in, they just go out, and if they have everything on, it just starts up and runs because people want that. And the same thing for guys that just have a 5.3 or 4.8 or whatever, and they put a camshaft in. I put a low buck truck camshaft, or I put a Ripper cam, I put a Truck Plus camshaft in it, and I put 50-pound injectors. And so now I need a way to make this run right. And so we'll have a way to make it run right. That way you can, have your camshaft and have it be tuned also. We'll switch to an aftermarket block and go to 1200 with nitrous. Okay. Nitrous is good. It's going to be hard to get up to those things with it because I don't know that block strength is going to be your problem there. Usually with nitrous, it's breaking pistons and tune problems with nitrous stuff. I have a Plasma Man on the Barra and 8085 turbo. It's a good swap. I also just put a G35 1050 on my Nova wagon, which is the same. G35. Yeah, G35 1050 is more than the 3584 RS. But yeah, those are all good ones. Just wanted your intake on a factory 400 horsepower, factory 400 block horsepower potential. Yeah, the David probably would know more than I know about that. I haven't done a lot of high horsepower 400 things. All the ones that I have done have all been aftermarket blocks. I don't know where the limit is on that. Do you have any videos up on a ZZ4 GM cam and a small block? I probably do. I'd have to go back and look. I think that WestTech's original Gladiator motor was a ZZ4. So there probably are ZZ4 camshafts used as the baseline cam before they put some sort of comp cam in there. I don't ever remember running one of those cams, but I'm sure that they did. S600 AMG drivetrain because I have MS3 Pro sitting on a shelf that'll run it. Very cool. How much horsepower will an LS spark system supply? Do you mean how much power can you run on a factory LS coil setup? We've done more than 1,500, and I don't know where that limit is. Because we didn't reach that. So if we can adjust the dwell with the Holley HP, we put 18 or 19 thousandths plug gap on it. And so I don't think we're going to get into misfire. I don't know where that will be. I can ask, maybe Capizzi or one of those guys that's making a lot of power and find out if they're doing anything. Or if they ever ran into a point where that became the problem. I've had people tell me, oh, I ran into misfire at 800 horsepower. I'm like, well, you were doing something wrong. You weren't controlling dwell or something, or you're trying to run 45,000 plug gap, because I know that that's not the case. We've run way, and I've done that many, many, many times. So we've gone way over 4-digit stuff with the stock stuff. Richard, do you carry a wallet? Yes. It just never has any money in it. G35 1050. The G series turbos are good. They're just a lot more money. Jimmy's also going to be doing testing on the NSX with different turbos, and we might do some stuff maybe with the guys from Victory on some of those imports as well. I need to send you a picture of my engine. I need you to carry it in the wallet. What's that all about? So the 400 small box for 4-bolt mains, blade 2-bolt is stronger, more meat on the 2-bolt. I have an Owen Prelude SH. How do I get rods? Are you trying to find another set of factory rods, or are you trying to find aftermarket ones? It must have went over my head. I don't get it. That's a lot of blue lights there. Yeah, Z, if you have Vizart helping you, he's the right guy for, especially for small block Chevy stuff. It's a really nice breakdown of tests, 16 styles of coil packs from YouTube from an Australian speed shop. What would they test on them? I'd be curious how you would test ignition coils. And like I said, having gone to 1540 or whatever, I don't know why I would not use the factory. We used LS3 coils. I don't know why you would use something else besides those. So I need to know what size they are, but I can't find the rods online. You can't find out what a stock rod length is? That information has to be online. I don't know on the H series off the top of my head because I didn't do a lot of stuff with them, but I know that all of that stuff's there. Output, heat, etc. You should be able to go online and put in the motor that you have, and it should there should be rod length dimensions and stuff online. Dirt track small block Chevy uses titanium 1.8 rod journal Honda rods. Yeah, Honda rod thing is a pretty common upgrade. I mean, for racing, not it's not your normal thing. I bought a kit for my 5.3 Chopacabra. Bought a kit for what? You're using Honda rods or rod bearings? What are you doing? It's Brian and Charles. My local library offers one of your books, so you can do it digital. I think that SA Designs, you can get those books digitally. What should I do to resurface my head? Do you think I need to change anything on what? On your 5.3? Resurfacing it is ideal so that you make sure it's flat, and the deck surface of the head and the block both. That's ideal. We scrape all the stuff off and vacuum it off with a razor blade. That also works. And then put new head gaskets on. Different brands of the same style to show what's good and what's not. Data overload. Yeah, that's all good information. Again, I don't use that sort of information to decide which ones I'm going to pick, because I don't use anything that there's never been any need for me to do anything else. I don't ever recommend anybody on LS stuff using a different other than stock coil, because it gets done what you need to get done. At the very highest level of guys making power, maybe there's something up there, but not for anything at the level that we went to on the Big Bang stuff and below. There's no reason to not to do any of that. But I still would like to see what kind of spark energy they have and stuff. Like that would be kind of cool, because I don't know what that is, and I would really be interested to see what happens to those numbers when we change the if we go from 0.5 or 1 millisecond up to 4.5 or even 5 or whatever. We don't normally go that far, but 4 or 4.5 is normally where we stay. I'd like to see what the change is when we do that. I'd like to see, because we do that to help cure the misfire on high boosted stuff. And then that becomes even more problematic as you back the timing up. On that note, guess what? It is time to go. So I'm going to start working on the videos for the turbo stuff. So the Tahoe turbo kit will be the first one. I'll try to put in as much data as we have, because it's pretty cool. Hopefully all of the guys are going to like that we ran it on pump gas. Like, it's got to be pump gas friendly. And guys could certainly make more power on pump gas. We weren't trying to do that. We were just wanted to get good power gains and then switch over to the other stuff. And even with the 85, we didn't put it in kill mode again, because we didn't want to run lots of drive shaft speed, and because I did not want that thing coming out. I didn't want to be standing near it, because it has 350,000 miles on it, 345,000 miles, and so you just don't want bad things happening. But I'll see you guys all tomorrow.